Hello, I'm Sister Joanna Iannati, Art and Spirituality Coordinator at Wisdom House Retreat and Conference Center in Litchfield. Making connections is probably one of the most satisfying experiences we have as humans. Seeing things in a new way gives us new life. Well, there's new life this time around in the Marie Louise Trichet Art Gallery because we're featuring the works of Cornwall artist Amelia deNeergaard. And Amelia's exhibit is entitled Natural Connections. Through Amelia's work, you will see the natural world in a new way and find new life.
I started working with twigs because they were all around me, and I was seeing them every day as I was driving around this area, particularly in the winter when the bare branches are everywhere. And I've always been drawn to the linear aspects of branches and linear art in general. A few years ago I was making armatures for these sort of cycladic figures, which I was making them out of wire and covering them with flax paper, handmade paper. And I really loved the armatures. I loved the weaving, the way I was weaving all of the wire together. But my initial idea was to cover them, so I did that, but I knew I wanted to get back to that. That summer I went up to Haystack School of Crafts in Maine, and I took a course with a fiber artist named Warren Seelig, and we talked extensively about ways that you connect things. And I had begun to think of to see my work as fiber related, because I was building up surfaces by using multiple elements of things, and I began to think about different ways of connecting things I was working with. So the first piece that I did was called Twig Field, where I took twigs and I joined them with copper wire. And I also really liked the way that the twigs looked like writing, because I had been working with calligraphy and been interested in ancient languages for years, and the twigs began to look like writing. And I started working with them in a sort of like I was doing jigsaw puzzles, making them all fit together. And then I started trying to think of other ways to connect these sticks that I was drawn to, and so I tried cable ties and waxed linen and vinyl tubing and, you know, different ways of joining them. So this work represents a variety of ways of joining twigs, and the allusions to things that interest me are here: the writing, language, maps. And to me they're also all about finding my way and making choices. One of the symbols that repeats itself naturally in twigs is the forked stick, and the fork stick is like the furca. I think it's a Greek letter, but it appears in all ancient languages and modern languages, the Y. And it's about making choices. Which path do you take? The other thing that has been becoming more important to me is shadows, and when you have free-hanging screens of these wire twigs, you get wonderful shadows. So I've really been playing with that and loving the way that develops. The first piece that I did like this was all sort of straight twigs and forked stick twigs, and now I'm introducing more multi-branched twigs, which to me sort of look like people as well. In this piece, it's called Scatter, and it's similar to the way in some cultures there are games, and also sort of fortune-telling processes where they throw sticks, and the way that they fall will denote different things about your life. And to me it's also very Japanese looking. It looks like Japanese calligraphy. I was really interested in building a form out of very small pieces, and I found that by massing these twigs, I could create this big volume, and that was really interesting to me. And I just love the peculiarities of the lines, the sort of thickness and thinness, the way that they're almost like a constellation. There's a real deep space. To me, they're just very evocative of a lot of different things as a field of texture and depth. And there's a sort of hardness and softness at the same time. These pieces are my most recent work, and I started off by looking. I've loved maps for a long time and done collages with maps, and to me these were sort of like aerial views of the land. This one is called Watershed. About a year ago I was at the Museum of Natural History, and I was looking at some of the Marshall Island stick charts, and I was fascinated by those because they take reeds and they lash them together and they create these navigation nautical charts that they use, and they depict the currents and the islands, and they actually use cowrie shells to show where the islands are. And so I'm mimicking some of that with stones, but I'm using natural, well, somewhat natural materials from where I live, except for the bamboo. And so they're a chart or a map as well. This piece is called Synapse, and to me it's sort of about neurons and the connections that are inside our body. I mean, this is to me very much like veins and arteries and neurons and just the things that make us alive. And in the same way, this is the system that transports nutrients in trees. So there's a real connection between us and the trees.